All right, now we're going to talk about what happens if they don't give you the slope and the y-intercept. Because to write directly into slope-intercept form, you need to know the y-intercept in order to do so. Well, remember our good old slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. If we rearrange this formula, we can come up with what's called point slope form, which will allow us just to plug 2 points in, our y1, x1, our y2, and x2. And then we'll be able to calculate everything else. And of course, our slope is also over here. So in order to rearrange this, we want to get rid of our fraction here. So I'm going to multiply this side by what's on the bottom, x2 minus x1. If I do it to the right, though, I also have to do it to the left, x2 minus x1. And so on my left-hand side, I'm going to end up with m times x2 minus x1. I'm not going to distribute the m yet. I'm going to leave it out front. And on the right-hand side, the reason I multiplied by the denominator is it's going to divide out. So on the left-hand side, sorry, this is the right-hand side, I'm left with y2 minus y1. Now, typically, we just rewrite this. We're used to seeing y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. But that's where the formula comes from. We call the y2 and x2 just x and y, because at the end of our equation writing, we're going to need an x and a y. So all we need to do is plug in 1 point here, x1, y1, and our slope. All right, let's see how to use this formula. So example 4 asks us, write the equation of a line with a slope of -3. So they're telling us m is -3, that's nice, that passes through the point. We'll call this x1, y1, 2, -4. So what they're giving us is the slope and a point. So what better form to use than point slope form? See, it's named with what you want to use. Now it asks us to write the equation in slope-intercept form. Now I can't write this in slope-intercept form right away because I don't know the intercept. So let's start with point-slope form, and then we'll just rearrange it so that we have slope-intercept form. So my form is y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. All right, we have a little bit of plugging in to do. I need to take this -3 and plug it in for m. And then my x1 will go right here, and my y1 will plug in right here. So that makes y minus my y1, which is -4. I'm going to use parentheses so that I keep track of that there's 2 negatives there. Then I have -3, parenthesis, x minus 2. Make sure you keep the equation exactly as you see it when you plug in the numbers. So keep your parentheses, keep everything in the same order. All right, so we can make this look a little bit nicer here. That's going to become a positive, so y plus 4 on the left. On the right, I'm going to go ahead and distribute this -3. So that becomes -3x plus 6. -3 times -2 is +6. Okay, now this almost looks like slope-intercept form. All I need to do is get rid of this 4 by y, because I need y to be by itself in slope-intercept form. So y equals -3x plus 2. All right. So using point-slope form just requires you to plug in a point, your x1 and y1, and your slope, and then just do a little algebra, rearranging it so that y is isolated on the left. So now we're in y equals mx plus b form. All right, the next example says write the equation of a line passing through the points. So here they're giving us 2 points. So we're going to call that x1, y1, and x2, y2. doesn't matter, just a quick note, it doesn't matter if you call this one the y, the second point, and this one the first point. You're going to get the same answer in the end. I just always assign the first one number 1 just because it makes sense, but you will get the same answer even if you switch the two. You just have to make sure you keep these together as a point and these together as a point. All right, so now we have 2 points, no slope. But, and our form is y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. So we don't have a slope, but we know how to calculate slope from 2 points. Our formula was y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we're using what we already learned here. So let's go ahead and plug that in and find slope. We have y2 is negative 2. Y1 is 6, so minus 6. On the bottom, I have 9 minus negative 3. Put that in parentheses. So negative 2 minus 6 is negative 8 on the top here, and 9 plus 3 is 12. Okay, I can simplify this slope a little bit. 8 and 12 both divide by 4, so that's going to leave me with negative 2 over 3. All right, now I have my slope and my first point. You can use either point, but we'll go ahead and use the first one to plug in here. So we have y minus, my y1 was 6, equals negative 2/3. And my x1 is a negative 3. So remember, now it just involves a little bit of algebra to deal with this. Yuck, we have a fraction. That's okay. We'll be all right. So first, let's distribute on the right-hand side since the parentheses is telling us to do that. Oh, let's make that a positive just so that we don't forget to do that. 2 negatives make a positive. So we get negative 2/3 x. And then we're going to multiply negative 2/3 over times positive 3. So if we do that, let's just look at it here. We notice that we're going to get negative 6 on the top and then divide by 3. That's going to give us a nice number. But we can also just notice that we have a 3 on the top and a 3 on the bottom, so they're going to divide out, and we're going to be left with negative 2. Either way you want to look at it works. Don't forget, because 3 is a whole number, it goes on to the top. You could have written 3 over 1 and multiplied the tops and the bottoms as well. So I'm left with 2/3 x minus 2 on the right, and a y minus 6 on the left. One more step to make this look like slope-intercept. Add the 6 over, and we end up with y equals negative 2/3 x plus 4. Final answer. Okay, one more example problem. The last type of problem they could ask you is a line connects the points. So once again, we have 2 points, x1, y1, and x2, y2. And we want to write the equation of the line, but this time we want to write it in standard form. Now remember, we can't jump right to standard form. We're either going to use slope-intercept or point-slope first. Since we don't have the intercept, we know we're going to use point-slope first. So there's our point-slope form. So I have my x1 and my y1, but I don't have my slope. Well, just like we just saw, we can calculate our slope since we have 2 points. So go ahead and plug in negative 1 minus 4 over 2 minus 8. So we end up with negative 5 on the top and negative 4 on the bottom. Because there's 2 negatives, negatives undo each other if there's 2 of them, so this is going to be positive 5/4. Now I'm ready to plug everything in. So if I head back to my equation here, I have y minus, my y1 was 4. My slope is 5/4. And I have x minus 8. Right? So go ahead and distribute that slope. So I end up with 5/4 x. And then when I multiply over to 8, I get minus 5 times 8 on the top and my 4 on the bottom. Well, that's going to be 40 divided by 4, which is 10. So that ends up being minus 10. Don't forget we still have our y minus 4 on the left-hand side. Okay. Now I'm asked not to put it in slope-intercept form, but I need to move this 4 over anyway because in both standard form and slope-intercept form, the number is always on the right-hand side. So I'm going to start over here. Let me just rewrite it. And I'm going to rearrange stuff. Add the 4 over. So I end up with y equals 5/4 x minus 6. Okay, now I'm ready to move my x and make sure it's positive. Okay, here's the catch. There's a fraction. We don't want a fraction. So my trick is, since this is a 4 on the bottom, a divide by 4. That's what a fraction says to do. I'm going to take this entire right-hand side and multiply by 4, and also multiply the left-hand side by 4. So this becomes, I'm going to come up over here, 4y on the left equals, when I multiply the 4 over to the 5/4, you can see that the 4 is going to divide out. Or you can think of it as 5 times 4 is 20 divided by 4. I'm just going to be left with 5x. But also don't forget that it has to come to this -6, so that makes -24. All right, looking better, no more fractions. So let's move the x over with the y. Remember, the x goes first, so I have -5x plus 4y equals -24. We're almost done. The last thing is we have a negative out front. We can't have that, so let's use our trick, multiplying by -1 or dividing by -1, which we know really just switches all the signs. So this becomes 5x minus 4y plus 24 on the right. So there's our final equation. Okay, just a little recap of what we learned. So the very first thing you need to do when you're trying to write the equation of a line is, if a slope is not given, use the slope formula to calculate one. So remember, that's our y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, our slope formula. If you have a y-intercept, then you can immediately write the equation in slope-intercept form. That's the easiest. We like that. But if they don't give you the y-intercept, we can't go immediately into slope-intercept. We have to use our other form. So this time we have a different point, so we're going to use point-slope form. And then, if necessary, we rearrange into the form asked for in the problem. So if we need to put it into slope-intercept form, then we do it. If we need to put it in standard form, we do it. All right, there are 4 practice problems here. Go ahead and give them a try, and I will be back with solutions.